My family and I, we love to go canoeing up north in the BWCA area. It's wonderful. It's just raw nature. There's fresh air, there's dense forests, there's animals there. We go every year. We've gone, since, well, forever. Well, I have two children now. One's 8, one is 6, and it's hard when they're little. But last year was the first time that I was able to take them because they were old enough to carry their own bags. My son, who was 8, had an easier time. My daughter, I carried her. We used her little school book bag and just put what we could in it. And then I carried a book bag as well. And my friend and their children, they brought some food. We brought clothes and different things. So we arrived there. And I was off of Echo Trail, and there was a lake, on a beautiful lake there, and they have this parking lot, and really, it doesn't start for a little ways up, maybe a quarter of a mile. You have to walk that before you can get to the portage, and a portage means that you have to actually carry the boat yourself. It's not a long portage, it's a very short portage because obviously you have to carry that boat. It's rather heavy. So they make it very short. But so we parked, and my kids don't have any experience with that. So I knew the areas that were safe and unsafe. So I told them, just run along, go play. I also then dropped off my book bag and carried this canoe up the lake. I don't know how far. Let's see, maybe. I'm trying to think of how many knots there. I'm trying to do the math. I'm not sure. Here, help me. How many was that? How many knots? 1 knot equals 60 something. Oh, it doesn't even matter. It was about 1/4 of a mile. So I carried the canoe 1/4 of a mile up, went back, got my book bag. You have to be careful not to carry them both at the same time. Trust me, you don't want to have your backpack and carry the canoe. It's very unsafe for your back, very unhealthy. So I went back, got my book bag, went up. I remember this one day, it was awful outside. I remember my son specifically. He had his little life jacket on. He's a really good swimmer. But my daughter, she's not a very good swimmer. She doesn't like to wear the life jacket, but I told her she had to. So I sat in the back, my daughter sat in the middle, and my son sat in front. We had to, because if we didn't, it would be unbalanced, and the boat would tip forward, tip up. So we put my son up front because he weighs more than my daughter, so I was in the back, we could balance it all up. But that day, I remember the wind was atrocious. The waves were blowing, and everywhere we tried to go, the wind would take us the opposite direction. So I remember first, my son was so excited. Oh, I love this, I can do it. I've got this canoe thing down as he was rowing. But he had never done this before, so he didn't quite understand how difficult it could become by the end of the day. So as we continued from spot to spot traveling up this lake, he started to complain because he was becoming very, very tired. At one point in time, it became so awful, and the wind was so atrocious that we literally had to, we were under a tree, and we'd have to then go the other way, and then we'd have to go from side to side just to move up this lake. So then my daughter started to get really nervous. She didn't want to move because she was scared if she moved in the boat, she would tip it, but I wanted her to move up a little bit. I said, it's easy, stop being paranoid, you can do this. So I'm trying to get my daughter's attention. I'm smacking my oar against the canoe. I was like, please, you have got to move forward. My son just looked forward, just totally ignoring me. I became so frustrated and so furious that I was like, I yelled, you are being lazy. I yelled at my kids and said, you need to do more. You're being too lazy right now. You know, my children looked back and they finally moved up a little bit. But, you know, it was a struggle and we fought for quite a bit. It was about 3 hours. You know, normally it takes about 3 hours, but it was beyond 3 hours because of all this traveling back and forth and getting stuck in the forest and thinking, oh, shoot, now what? So, yeah, I remember my knees were just destroyed because the way I was having to sit in the canoe, but I didn't even care at that point. I was just ready to give up. I was ready to just park the canoe, let's go. I don't care if we have to slide up the rail. That's basically what we were doing. It was like, let's get there. Finally, we did. Finally, we arrived. My son was rather exhausted, and I felt awful. I went up to my son. I said, I am so sorry. I was extremely frustrated. My son was so sweet about it. He's like, it's okay. But it's still, to this day, it really bothers me that, you know, that their first experience, I yelled at him that way. Yeah, I wanted it to be fun. So I was a little bit bummed out that was their first experience.